How do we get through grief? Stick around. Let's find out. Welcome to Keeping It Real with Grandma Jo in faith and in truth. Grief is a very human and natural emotion. Let's look at Jesus, for example. In John 11:35, Jesus wept when he had heard that his friend had died. Knowing the process of grief is as unique as every person created is very helpful. Also, grief is not only the loss of a loved one. It could be the loss of a relationship. It could be the loss of a job, especially a long-term job. It could be the loss of health, or sadly, the loss of a limb or limbs. I have a close friend who asked me to share on this topic, and especially about how there really isn't a manual to go through the process of grieving. Let's talk about some of the defenses that she, or maybe even you, or someone you know, puts up when they're going through the grief process. One is the mask they wear. They say and act as if nothing's wrong. Another could be the walls that are built up to protect themselves, which include not talking about it or going into automatic pilot when they're dealing with maybe their jobs, their spouse, or their children. Another is isolation and numbness from the pain. She said it was even hard for her to be around couples or friends they had had for a long time, or even say the word that she was widowed. Knowing these signs can help us as loved ones who are coming alongside those going through the grieving process. Some of the things that we can do to support the process: keep reaching out respectfully, even when they say no, and trust that even when they say they are okay, they probably are not. Keep pressing patiently and encouraging them to talk about their feelings and let them know that their feelings are normal and they're worth talking about. And be careful not to share our or your grieving experiences to the point that they have to comfort you. Keep chipping away at the walls that they put up gently and lovingly, and keep praying over them, and when possible, pray with them. If you're the one going through the grieving process, don't compare yourself or your grieving process with somebody else's. Realize that larger belief doesn't always mean less grief. Know that your grief is not a lack of belief, and knowing that sorrow and joy can exist at the exact same time. My personal experience with grief and what I have seen in others is that it's very painful. May I caringly suggest that although pain is mandatory, misery is optional. Which brings us to our challenge verse today, Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. So how do we get through the grieving process? One day at a time, sometimes one moment at a time, remembering that others are also grieving, our spouses, our children, our friends and family, knowing that grief is exhausting and does leave us weary, but there is rest in Christ. So please cling to hope, knowing that the promises of Christ is that there is birth, then there is death, and then there is the ultimate resurrection, all at its appointed time. So as my close friend said, that helped her, is look at my cross, the cross of Christ, and his victory over death. My heart is with all of you who are experiencing grief or know someone who is. Blessings, and see you next week.